Now, my talk is going to take the form of a top 20 list, and I love top 20 lists for 3 reasons. First of all, they're nice and ordered. Secondly, they're made up in numbers, which is great. And thirdly, because there's 20 of them and we've got about an hour, they're usually short enough, each point is usually short enough to maintain my attention span, which is always an advantage. So, without further ado, number 20. The rest of you are weird. We are completely normal. Now, I'm often asked, what does it feel like being autistic? And my answer is always, well, from my perspective, it feels completely normal. I don't know, should I feel weird? Now, one nickname for Asperger Syndrome is wrong planet syndrome, because once in a while that is kind of how you feel. It feels like you're born on the wrong planet that's inhabited by a load of people who are all really, really strange, but somehow they have the nerve to band together and tell you that you're the odd one out. Now, these people who seem to be the sole authority on what normal is and isn't supposed to be have made some rather bizarre rules about what normal is. For example, it's impossible to look smart unless you're wearing a tie, and you have absolutely no chance of passing an interview unless you walk in front of the interview panel wearing a noose. I mean, think about, why am I wearing this thing? I mean, what's it for? There's absolutely no point in it. This kid has it absolutely right. Please can't read it. It says, grown-ups are weird because every one of them says, how are you? And you always have to say good even if you are not good. Now, I don't know this kid, but I like him because he gets people. Oh, and by the way, if you ever invite me around for Sunday dinner and you offer me the last potato, I will take it. I don't know how it became socially acceptable and a proud British tradition to express your wish for the last potato by aggressively forcing it on other people. But what I've learned as an adult, it took me all the way up to adulthood to learn it, but when people offer you the last potato, you're supposed to say no. And when I offer people the last potato, because it's a genuine question, it's not just part of the formality, and people say, yeah, I'll have half with you, I'm quite happy for them to have half with me. But I'm wondering why it's socially acceptable for everyone to say no, for me to take the last potato, and then everyone get cross with me because I took the last potato. Now, maybe it's just me being weird, but if you actually wanted the last potato, maybe you should have said what you meant rather than the complete literal opposite to what you meant. I don't know, clearly I'm the weird one because I took you at your word. Anyway, this leads nicely into point number 19. We may be normal, but we're instructed to believe that we are different. Now, I firmly believe that if things were the other way around, and people with autism made up 99% of the population, and non-autistic people made up the 1%, guess who'd have the disorder? Now, one of my favourite newspaper cartoons ever, and I wish I could find a copy to show you, so I just have to describe it. It's a one-panel picture of a very busy street full of loads and loads of people, all of whom are wearing sandwich boards saying, the end is nigh. Except this one person is walking along in a suit and tie and a very normal looking briefcase, and one of the sandwich board guys turns to him and goes, weirdo. And I cannot come up with a better analogy for what it's like having mild autism. I really can't. And right from our earliest years in school, when we're communicating in a way that makes sense to us, maybe with less words and maybe with sensory issues attached or whatever, but still communicating in a way that we feel comfortable with, our parents are told right from the start that we are not making the right progress. And I think that's not so much an autism thing, that's a special needs thing, because I have a friend who's dyslexic and was rather disgustingly told by one of her teachers that she'd amount to nothing. She is now a nurse with a nursing degree, thank you very much. But she could tell pretty much the same story as me. Right from the start, her parents were told that she was not making the right kind of progress. And children, even autistic children, are aware from a very early age they're perceptive enough to know if they don't fit in and that not fitting in is bad. Number 18. As obvious as it sounds, we're really not all the same. Now, I'm almost looking forward to the day when someone comes up to me and says, Chris, I'm not sure you're autistic. I mean, I have an autistic cousin and you're nothing like him. Because my answer will be, yeah, that's funny, because I've got a non-autistic cousin and you're nothing like him. Are you sure you're non-autistic? Yeah, it won't surprise anyone in this room for me to tell you that autistic people vary from each other for exactly the same reason that non-autistic people do. But you'd be surprised how often we are tarred with the same brush. We've all been on courses, myself included, where occasionally we get someone who tells us this is the way to work with autistic people. Autistic children like this, this, and this. Don't do this if a child has autism. And I don't want to damage the reputation of these courses because they do us a load of good, but it does kind of take away our individuality a bit. And I have to admit, when I was working in special education, not many people did this, but I did catch the occasional adult talking to me as another staff member with the same intonation and same slow voice that we talk to the autistic students with. I was a qualified primary school teacher with a maths degree by this point, but I was autistic, and that's how you talk to autistic people. And yeah, you will find, as inevitably you've all already found out through experience, that there's such a wide range of different kinds of autistic people. Some people with autism are the nicest, kindest, most warm-hearted people you can possibly know, and some people with autism are absolutely downright nasty. You know, we're people. And it goes down to that phrase which I'm sure some of you may have heard before: once you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism. Number 17, I like this one. Let us be geeks. Now, autistic people have a reputation for finding obsessions in things. And, well, I'd question which ones are actual autistic obsessions and which ones are legitimate interests. For example, I've already told you about my chess geekiness, and I've run 17 chess tournaments in 6 different schools, 5 primary schools, 1 special school, and that has always just been part of my character. I've always been Mr. Bonnello, the chess geek. Rather interestingly, it wasn't until I worked in special education that a small minority of people started to see this chess geekiness as Chris's autistic obsession. Now, be careful with that, because some obsessions are legitimate interests. We just express them differently because, well, we express most things differently. And because it looks different to other people with their interests, sometimes it's interpreted differently from other people. But I love chess because it's the perfect chance to outsmart another person without even needing to look at them. It's the perfect example of a mental duel where there's no talking or other things involved. It is just your brain against their brain. More importantly, I love chess because I have seen the impact it can have on young people, but particularly children with special needs. I've seen children go from hitting other people in the playground because they have no other ways or coping strategies to deal with their issues, to people who stop hitting people in the playground, not because of any telling offs they've had or words from teachers or anything, but because they played chess. And they've learned the thought process of, if I do this, what's going to happen next? If I take this action, what's the consequence going to be? And that is why I love chess, because I've seen the impact it can have on people. I don't love chess just because it's my autistic obsession. I think that kind of cheapens it a bit. And to try to point home a bit further, who knows who this guy is? Brilliant. Who is he? He's Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, if I did have an autistic obsession when I was a kid, it was Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, his games aren't really big news these days, but back when I was growing up, he was right up there with Super Mario. And I adored Sonic. Not just the games, I read all the comics, collected all the merchandise and everything, and it reached the point where I got to my 13th birthday, and an increasing number of adults were telling me that I needed to grow out of it. But why? I mean, have you ever played Sonic games? those who have played may remember that half a dozen different ways you can reach that spinning signpost at the end. It's gave me an adventurous attitude. It turned me into a bit of an explorer. It's helped me to apply that explorer's attitude to the forest outside my house, and I kept exploring until every tree was climbed and climbed down again, and every cliff face was ascended and descended and ascended again. Please don't tell my mum. And then the next day I'd go to school and be told by teachers that my generation don't explore outside anymore, they just sit at home playing computer games. And when I was reading the comics, I will say to this day that those comics taught me more about how to tell a good story than my A level in English literature did. It taught me that even cartoon strips can be really gripping stories in their own right, with well-developed characters and complex plot lines. And whilst I was being told to grow out of Sonic, I was reading these comics about Sonic and his friends and their fights against the evil Dr. Robotnik, and it's instilled certain values in me, not least the need to keep standing up for what is right and keep fighting for what is right, even if the odds are completely against you. And personally, I don't know why I'm supposed to have grown out of that. Now, the message I'm trying to put across here is, before you discourage an autistic person away from their autistic obsession, first, at least make sure that it's not actually a legitimate interest that is secretly doing them a world of good.